Okay, on a bench here we have a rather rare radio. This is a Teaberry Ranger T. Don't really see a lot of these. This is a 40 channel AM and sideband radio. Got this one cheap. Wanted it for a parts chassis. I have two other ones. But it actually does work, and it's actually a shame what's been done to this poor thing inside. Like I say, it does work. Doesn't work that great. When I first turned it on, I had with 100 microvolts input, which would be an S9 on this, what you actually calibrate your meters for at S9. I could barely even hear a signal. I'll get into some of the problems inside, but there are a few transformers I was able to adjust to get it down to. Now I can hear a signal at about 10 microvolts, so it's improved. Transmit power, it's low also. Dead key's about 3 watts, swings to about 5. Sideband, yeah, you're lucky if it might do 1.5 to 2 watts on sideband. But like I say, it was a parts chassis. I wasn't planning on it actually working, and it actually works. And actually, it's not in that bad shape, so it actually, deserves to be restored. But oh man, the inside, it's not good. So let me pause the video here, and I'll get the covers popped off of this thing here, so you can take a look at the inside and some of the problems. Now, from down here, it actually doesn't look too bad. Oh, by the way, it did actually come with the original Teaberry microphone. It's always a nice bonus. The cover's missing off of this, so a new one of those, just like this, there's supposed to be a piece of phenolic board there to insulate this, to make sure that this RF shield that's at DC ground, or circuit board ground, doesn't come in contact with the chassis, because they shouldn't be connected. That's why they always have, you'll see capacitors that actually connect the DC ground or circuit board ground to the actual chassis of a radio. So that's why they have it, or supposed to be on here. You can see the glue gave way, and that's gone. So new one of those needs to be made. Yeah, you can see there's been some soldering work here. This shield's been up before, and there's some parts on this radio that aren't supposed to be here. Most of the stuff that's here, the capacitors you see, are supposed to be here, but there are a few things somebody's bodged on the board. So yeah, there's some modifications that need to be undone, because this is my radio, so when I'm done with it, it would be modification free. I don't modify my own radios. I want them 100% original. You're not doing anything but destroying the historic value of a radio when you modify one. So, like I say, the underside doesn't look too bad, but the top side of the board, that's pretty much a different story. Now, for starters, if you own one of these radios, I don't care who you have do it. Send it out to somebody, do it yourself. Hell, I don't care if your trash man works on radios. Have him do it. He can't do any worse than what the radio is going to do to itself over time, and that is destroy itself. And I mean, when I say destroy, I mean literally destroy itself. Every single one of these radios I have ever seen, customers' radios or mine, have had this problem. I've never seen one that didn't have a problem. And that problem is, see how this is a double-sided board. Okay, you see the copper traces there, run it all over the top side. Now, this is an early board. They use little pass-through wires, piece of wire that jumpers between the top and the bottom, so they're not through-plated holes. But you can see it's basically just bare copper. Well, you can see it's copper, and what does it do? It turns green, and that's not epoxy overcoat. That green is corrosion. So that electrolytic capacitor is leaked, and usually there's 2 spots on these radios. You will see it right here and all back in here. I don't even know if I can get down to where you might be able to see it back here, because it is really hidden. Yeah, you can just kind of make it out. That's actually a copper trace right there that's actually green. But that trace actually runs from over here. And matter of fact, one of the last customers' radios I did, one of these, I actually had to replace that entire trace. It was corroded the whole way around. It loops, there's a relay underneath here, right about here. But that trace wraps the whole way around, makes a U-turn and comes around. And it's, without even taking this shield off, I'm I can guarantee you that whole thing's probably almost all gone. It's, corroded up. Apparently it's still connected because it's, the radio does work. It transmits and receives. But yeah, if you own one of these things, for God's sakes, change the electrolytic capacitors. They're just, I don't know what it is about the ones they used in these radios. Matter of fact, these are, well, they're Matsushita Panasonic. I mean, it's not like they were cheap caps. It's just, I don't know. It's just, in this radio, the ones right here and here just are prone to self-destructing. I don't know if it's because this heatsink gets so hot. I don't know. Actually, I mean, this one down here does touch the heatsink. But, yeah, they're just so, every one I've ever seen. And it's a pain in the ass, and if you're paying somebody to do it, it gets expensive to have to repair all those traces. So, but overall, that's not a big problem to me. I'm used to doing circuit trace repair. The other problem on this thing is, which someone has broken almost every core in every transformer in this thing. Almost all of these are broken. Most of these are broken. Actually, I think there's only 4, maybe 5 cores that aren't broken. All of the rest of them are broken. And I know what it is. Pardon my French, but some jackass used a damn metal screwdriver to try and adjust these things. That, and on top of it, they sealed all of the cores in these radios with wax, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, there's one that wasn't touched. Surprise, surprise. So, the thing to do there, don't just jab your alignment tool down through that and try and adjust it. You need to remove, get in here, just like this, get all of that wax out of there first to make sure, so the core can turn easily. But yeah, you would think somebody would take an alignment tool, they'd stick it in a hole, turn it, and crack the core. They'd go to the next one, they'd turn it and crack the core. You would think that somewhere in that empty balloon that sits on top of their shoulders, there would be a tiny light bulb in the back there somewhere that might go off and say, after you've probably broken maybe 2, or maybe even got to a third one that would tell you, hey, dumbass, you've done broken the last 3, maybe you shouldn't be using this metal screwdriver. But I guess these people are light bulbless. But, yeah, so almost every transformer in this radio has to be removed, and then the core is extracted, so, and then there's other shit in here. There's, matter of fact, back there in that corner, it looks like, where in the hell was it? Right, get my light back out here. Right there. See, right? Little trace, or silk screen. There's a wire lead. That's because it looks like somebody just literally ripped, reached down in there with a pair of needle nose pliers and pulled an electrolytic capacitor out of there. I don't know what the hell they were doing there. What in the hell is this? There's a choke, it looks like, that runs from the top of this metal canned transistor up to the RF shield over top of the relay. What in the hell are they doing there? It's just... And there's a couple other parts I see removed out of this thing. You have to sit back and wonder, are people really that stupid? I don't know. So, yeah, it's got a bunch of stuff that needs to be undone. Now, Lord knows when I'll be able to get to this thing, because it's mine, when I'll be able to get to it to actually completely restore it. But, this one, unfortunately, cannot be put on the back burner. At least some of it. I have to do the electrolytic capacitors. Even if I don't do the transformers, undo the modifications, get it up and running 100%, I have to do the electrolytic capacitors. It's obvious. They're leaking. It's just literally destroying the radio from the inside out. People don't seem to realize how important it is that if you change your electrolytic capacitors, that's why. It causes severe damage to radios, especially double-sided boards. Single-sided boards, yeah, they start to leak. They'll eat maybe it's the leads off sometimes, off the tops of some of the leads. But you can replace the components. But man, once it leaches through the board to the bottom, it can start eating traces. But if it's got traces on the top of the board, the damage starts as soon as the capacitor starts to leak. So, and Yeah, pay no attention to these floppy electrolytic capacitors. That's the way these were from the factory. I actually had somebody ask me one time, not too long ago, he was working, another tech was working on one, said, what's up with those two big, huge 2200 microfarad caps just kind of floating around in there? It looks like somebody bodged them on the board. Nope, that's actually the way they're supposed to be. Those are factory original. Now, if you look up at the cover, at one point in time there actually used to be a piece of foam glued to the underside of this cover here, and what that was meant to do was when you put the cover on, that would hold them and prevent them from bouncing around in there. So yeah, there you go. There's the insides of a butchered rare radio, like I say, because you really don't see a lot of Teaberry Ranger tees. And I bought this as a parts chassis, figuring it's not going to work. It's going to be completely hacked up. But actually, it's not that bad. I mean, like I say, it's actually in fairly decent exterior condition. It's just a matter of, like I say, I'll redo the caps, put it on the front burner for probably the next one of my radios I need to work on, which still, God knows when that'll be. But, and then at some later date, I'll tackle removing all the transformers and undoing all these stupid modifications that somebody did and putting components back in that they've removed and removing components that they've installed. So it's a original radio. So there you go. There's just a preview of the inside of a slightly screwed up, well, I shouldn't say slightly, it's actually pretty screwed up, but Teaberry Ranger T.